Good morning. Welcome to the episode 5 of AI Business Asia podcast. I am your host, Leo Jiang. In our previous episode, we have interviewed other tech giants, Google, Huawei, to share their latest and greatest. Today, I had the pleasure to have Adeel Khan from Microsoft joining my show to unpack one of the most searched and fast growing AI product of Microsoft, Microsoft Copilot. So, audience, you will gain the first hand insights and experience in how it's been developed and the future features, its use cases, the enterprise adoption challenges, and above all, how is that going to help you and impact all of us. So a quick introduction of Adeel. So Adeel is the distinguished senior technical specialist at Microsoft, renovated for driving enterprise-grade digital transformation. He has been recognized as the AI Copilot champion, helping Fortune 500 organizations adopting and transforming the future of work, and recently publishing a book introducing Microsoft for managers. So welcome, Adeel. Interesting name you picked for the book. It sounds like you only care about the managers. Tell us about yourself and your journey at Microsoft and what made you to become the champion for AI Copilot.
Thank you so much for having me. I've been with Microsoft for almost 5 years now, but in association with almost 20 years with the Microsoft ecosystem. Copilot has actually, I mean, since March, I always call out this March last year as one of the key, key dates or key, timeline event, because that's the point when OpenAI became public and Microsoft announces the Copilot experience for or a infusion of Copilot experience in many applications. I think that's where my journey started, because the potential of Copilot and how it is going to impact the overall industry, how it is going to impact me, how it is impacting my colleagues or the customers is so huge, and it was very clear from the day one that this is going to be a major shift in organization, and a major shift in terms of the way we work, and that's why the whole change came up, and that's why the whole idea of book came up. And yes,
Mm,
I do care about business managers, because they are going to be one of the key users of Copilot, and they are the ones who are going to actually experience the most important transformation. I think apart from developers, they are the ones that is their roles are going to see a massive transformation from what it used to be before March 2023
mm,
and what it will be in future.
interesting. Why managers? People like content workers, they're not going to benefit as much?
No, I think manager is a broader term. So content worker would always, always fit into that. But what the audience, what I mean, again, this is coming from my interaction from the customers that I fortunately get to see and learn, that they are the ones who are getting empowered with the Copilot most, especially in the, I mean, we've seen technology transformation or AI impact, many avenues of our organization, many areas of organizations. Digital workers, content creators, artists, they have been, getting benefits of AI in some shape or form, or some specialized roles also we're getting. But now Copilot is just democratizing that ability to the most ignored audience of the organizations, the typical managers who are just day in, day out performing their actions, activities, and hitting their KPIs. But now they can hit their KPI much faster. They can do much more than a typical mundane activities. And that's why I felt like, they are the audience that needs to really amp up and ramp up their capabilities faster, because their roles and their day-to-day operations are going to really transform.
Give me some personal experience. Like, what is the most amusing or unexpected thing that Copilot has done for you?
Oh yeah, so I've been, again, like I said, I've been fan of Copilot from day one. The day one, from the announcement, it was so exciting, and I'll give you a very small backdrop story also. That when I started my career, I was a software developer for an organization that used to provide solutions for card personalizations, bank cards, ATM cards personalization solution. And I was, I always used to go to my manager and ask this question that, hey, banks create thousands of cards every day, there's so much data. can we build something that where these card operators who are not actually technical savvy people, they are pretty much operational mechanical, can ask a question and get an answer on that, details like how many cards are pending, instead of clicking on multiple places and finding these answers. This is I'm talking about, this is 20 years back. So the idea or need was there, but it was never materialized because technology was not there to support. But now actually it can happen. So this kind of conversational interaction was always something I always kept on thinking that this would benefit business users much more than anybody else. And when Copilot came in, I think the first, obviously, a lot of us started creating drafting emails. So email was the one, but where I found personally most helpful was explaining complex maths problems to my kids. This is my go-to method now. I
Mm,
actually, of course, it's been 20-25 years since I did algebra and all. So some of those methods, I may be able to perform those actions, but may not be able to explain them in a way that that can help them understand the core concepts. So I always go to Copilot and say, hey, this is the math problem, give me an explanation that I can provide, or give me a steps that I can help my child to understand, and also help them understand when I'm explaining this problem to them. That's the one I use a
mm,
lot. It's because my
mm,
daughters are now in grade 8 and going to start IGCSE very soon. So that's something, it's very common. And in office, I think any person's birthday is going to receive a interesting poem about their work and their habits, and I use Copilot for that. So personally, I use these kind of things more, and professionally, obviously, I don't think there's anything left where I do not use Copilot, be it from an
mm.
RFP answers to responding to a critical email, to picking up in sentiments or picking up the leftover questions from the meetings. I mean, I use it quite regularly.
Interesting. So, for audience who doesn't know what Microsoft Copilot, if you have to describe it, a typical prompt that I always use, explain this to me like I'm 5 years old. How would you explain Copilot based on your experience being a champion?
A Copilot, from a very typical definition perspective, it's a AI powered, generative AI powered assisted experience that is infused in Microsoft ecosystem, all the way from Office, Word, PowerPoint to more specialized applications like Dynamic CRM or GitHub for developers. And what it does is that it help us interact with all of the information that we have stored in our systems, be it our user systems like our Outlook emails or presentation or PowerPoints or PDF files. So it uses that data that is allow available to me and help me to interact with that data using
Mm,
conversational. So if I have to explain it to 5-year-old, I would always say that, hey, imagine a super smart friend who knows most of the things about you, your likability, your work, and then at the time, in the time of needs, you would always
mm,
shout out to that friend and say that, hey friend, how can I get
mm,
this done? That friend will tell you these steps or what you should do, but obviously you are the one who's going to do it. The friend will not do it for you. The friend will
mm,
help you in terms of understanding these steps
mm,
or understanding what you are asking, give you the answers, but
mm,
eventually you will be the one who will understand that and deliver that. So it's a genius friend. And just to explain it person a bit more, I mean, how I give this explanation to adults, not the 5-year-old, is
yeah,
that imagine Copilot as a 7-year-old genius. So it's a genius kid, but you need to explain what you want. It can do wonders for you,
right,
but you need to explain what wonders you want.
right, right. Okay, so there's two very interesting points I want to ask you. Number one, I think people are familiar with ChatGPT, what the wonder that it can do. You have Microsoft Copilot. What you just described is for everything that Microsoft does, that we have been IT professional for decades. Who are, the things that we're familiar with, either Word documents, CRM, Microsoft Dynamics, all of that. Would you say Copilot is that new engine, the new face, the new assistant that sort of organize everything and put that in front of you and having a conversation? with you instead of you trying to understand and fit into different toolboxes that Microsoft offers.
Yeah, yeah. So that's the idea. I think that's this idea is growing with the as we move in future. That the vision is to have that a generative AI powered AI assistant that can get me information from any source that I already have access to. So this source
Mm,
could be my CMS system that has SharePoint and thousands of PDF files or Word documents where I already have access, or
mm,
my CRM that could be Dynamics or Salesforce where I have my customer information, my sales information, or my leads information, or a service information in solutions like ServiceNow, and get those insights whenever I ask a question. So instead of me going into those systems, searching, or maybe trying to connect the dots, because some of the information may be on email, some of this is in SharePoint, and then some of it is in Dynamics or in Service Now or in Salesforce, and bringing those, connecting those dots by myself. I can get the help of Copilot to bring those informations together for me. So that's the
mm.
phase, and that's where probably in airtime you would see more commonly that people would have a co-pilot assistant always there, as a one single master co-pilot experience in teams, most likely, where they would
Mm.
go interact, get these kind of informations, and then move towards more specialized work, more specialized element into specific app, like hey, I've got the whole idea what I need to do with this customer. Now let's draft a presentation for this customer, and then go and use Copilot in PowerPoint and build that presentation out of that context that you have gathered from everywhere else.
Since you start touching the point of how to use Copilot, whether it's in Teams or in other tools, what is the most interesting use cases that you have seen of using Microsoft Copilot in the enterprise environment?
There are many actually, have started, and obviously every time I interact with customers, it fascinates, that how customer teams and leaderships are actually thinking about using it. So one of them is recently we had an interaction with the healthcare industry, and this is, again, this is very personal also to me, that every time we visit a healthcare professional or a doctor, we see that they spend a lot of time with the system, and where we are actually demanding them to, within that span of 15-20 minutes that we get for the general practitioner, we want them to invest time with us, not with system more. So we are seeing co-pilot experience in a way that, where healthcare professionals are actually not typing everything while they go, they just interact with us, while Copilot is actually listening to those conversation, filling up the basic essential information for them, rather than they going ahead and filling that. And then, of course, this is all done in the draft mode where they verify, validate in the last couple of minutes, and then post this information, for the, as a medical history or as a prescription. And that's something that I found really, really amazing, in a sense that it has that human touch, as well as it really going to impact a larger audience in terms of where it really values.
So just to interrupt, in this conversation that you have with the doctors, where everything was recorded, can I ask you, like, is a co-pilot recording the conversation over a conference, or you have some sort of note taker uh, live with you in that in-person meetings?
So the idea is a note taker live in person. So one of the capabilities of Copilot is to listen, or perhaps it's just generative AI, but obviously supported with the Copilot, is ability to listen to live interactions, transcript those live interactions, and then based on those transcriptions identify key elements that are
Mm,
associated. Like, for example, at real time, doctors would be able to say that, hey, I'm actually, my patient name is Adeel, he is 40 years old, and he's visiting me for, he's complaining about headache, just to hypothesize. So all of this goes into system as a system, to start capturing that. And once the whole conversation is completed, uh, doctors can actually ask, hey Copilot, can you summarize the interaction, and summarize it in a way that give me a patient information, as well as the synopsis of the complaints that patient has, and the recommendation that I have provided. So all from that transcript are summarized and prepared, that can easily be further enhanced, modified, and reflected into a system of record. So instead of everything being typed, now the whole interaction is being captured,
Mm.
summarized, and prepared in a structure that is useful, and then seamlessly copied into a system of record. People would have asked, and even at the time of this envisioning, some of the healthcare professionals asked that, hey, why don't you reflect that directly into the system? And that's where the autopilot and copilot difference comes in. It's a copilot, it will help you prepare the draft, it will do the 80% job for you, but the remaining 20%, that is to validate, ensure that whatever you have sent is not misinterpreted and
Mm.
transcripted and
Mm.
validated. So you need to validate that and then perform the action. So you would do the performance of the actual action into system of record, but at least you don't have to worry about everything being typed, and you reduce the 80% time that you spent on that particular activity.
Mm.
So this one I
Mm.
really found very interesting, because it's always something that bugs me whenever I visit. Unfortunately or unfortunately, whenever I visit, a healthcare professional, and because they have to do it, but I also demand their time, that hey, look at me, not the system at that time.
I think this is a very common problem for managers who have a lot of meetings, just don't have time to follow up, and keeping all the notes always
Yeah.
challenging while you're having 4 or 5 meetings in a day.
Yeah, I was just saying that yes, that's something that I want to talk about as well. At the notes capability, especially for people who have booked multiple booking. I mean, this is very common in corporate culture, that you get multi-booking done. People are demanding your time at multiple places. Teams Copilot can actually help you to capture those, and then you can go back and say that, hey, what was the summary of this discussion? Was I really required there? Was there an action associated to me or my team? You can ask those questions, and it can help you get those answers very quickly. So it
Hmm.
will help a lot of people on that front as well.
Okay, and then can we talk about some use case in the more production, customer-facing capacity? What kind of use case do you see that Copilot is actually directly adding value in customer experience or revenue creation?
Yeah. So couple of areas I've seen Copilot picking up quite massively. One of them is, of course, really hits the revenue, that is the sales department, where Copilot for sales, and that's why Microsoft actually came up with the specialized Copilot. So in the just to before I explain that, let me quickly explain in a very simple term that there is a ecosystem of Copilot. Nearly 70 plus Copilot experiences are available as of today, and each of these
What does that mean?
experiences, yeah, I'll explain. So Microsoft has this whole ecosystem of multiple applications, all the way from Word, PowerPoint, Excel, to specialized application like CRM, then a developer community from low code to no code, and then the data and Azure and AI. So many applications, so many suites, so many applications, and all of these applications today have some sort of Copilot experience infused in it. So there is a Copilot experience that is generalized across, that you see as a Microsoft Copilot in MS Teams today if you're using it. And then there are specialized experiences that, like, for example, I'll explain this in more detail just now, but just to give you a hint of it, like a Word Copilot that understands the dynamics of Word, the kind of activities I need to perform in Word. Like I need to, document, I need to rephrase, I need to turn text into tables. So all those kind of experiences, they are already, infused in that generative AI assistant, and it understands them well. So you don't have to do too much explanation. It will help you do those activities quite quickly. But it lives within that boundary of Word. I mean, I cannot go to Word Copilot and say, hey, can you do me a or analyze a calculation in Excel, because it doesn't understand the world of Excel. So they are boundaried, but they are experiences. So those kind of, I think, 70 plus experiences are available today, out of which the most interesting or most commonly used apart from the personal productivity ones, because these Word, Excel, PowerPoint are personal productivity. It will empower me, but they are not specific to any business line. I mean, Excel can be used by HR, Excel can be used by finance, Excel can be used by an operation team, right? But then sales, for sales there's a specialized uh, Copilot experience that we call as Copilot for sales. Similarly, there's for Copilot for service, because they do not need to just have understanding of essentials but of personal productivity, but they need to have an element of sales, or a mindset of a seller, that how seller would think, how seller would need to address, how seller would need to answer questions, what data context they need to use, what data points they need to use. So that's something that I've seen, most organizations really jumping on, because it really accelerates their sellers' ability to remain personalized with their customers or with their lead. For example, Leo sends me an email, and I am a new seller. I've just started managing an account of Leo. I don't have the background, but then that Copilot for Sales can help me draft an email that will not only address Leo's conversation in that particular, or Leo's ask in that particular email, but also answer them from the basis of historic conversation, from the basis of historic interaction. Let's suppose Leo's team, bank has, or Leo's account has done millions of dollars of business with us, or if there is an open challenge that is required, or if there is an open action that is required, it will take that references into a draft. So as a seller, I may have just started this managing this account, for 5 days, 10 days, but the context that Copilot will give me would not be like that. Would be that I know this account in and out for a longer duration of time. So really helping sellers to accelerate in terms of keeping it personal, not losing a conversation, or not losing the insights that can be critical in terms of closing the deals or making an impact. And of course, making sure that whatever interaction is happening is again going back into system of record. One of the things that seller used to hate, and I think still they hate, is the mundane task of data entry, right? Seller wants to close their numbers, they don't want to punch numbers or details into systems, right?
Mm,
So Copilot can actually help them do that, reflect that change into system of record much faster. So
mm.
that's the use case I've seen, picked up in many organizations. And it was like more of a native adoption, like, yeah, it's a no-brainer. I need to do this. I need to empower my sellers with Copilot for sales so that they become more efficient. They have more personalization, and I do not have to worry about data quality anymore, because Copilot would do that for me.
Has it been a smooth journey for enterprise to adopt Copilot, either from a generic experience perspective or a specialized experience perspective? What other challenges have you seen in their adoption?
I think no disruptive technology can, be adopted smoothly in any organizations. We talk about enterprise organization.
Yeah,
So one of the
yeah.
first challenges that I talked about in the article also is it was that, that hey, they were, I mean, Copilot or generative AI based chat, or generative AI based assistant experiences, it really popped up when Azure OpenAI or ChatGPT came up, right? So a lot of people started using them, and started using them within the enterprise framework, but with no control. So one of the early challenges was that, hey, how can I make sure that, my finance, HR, IT all relate to the same data, same context, and work on a same way, or present the organization as a single organization. And how can I make sure that there are not many, AI bots or
Mm,
generative AI bots coming in? So uh,
mm,
streamlining was the first challenge, that hey, how to make sure that I streamline my organization. The second challenge was that when the organization started looking at it, and this challenge is still persistent, I think, in most of the organizations, is the way they orchestrated their data ecosystem. One of the myths is that people consider Copilot as something out of a, magic stories, or something out of a Harry Potter, series. It's not a magic wand. You cannot just say, hey Copilot, bring me insights, and it will bring you insights. It won't do that, because it needs backing of foundational data that needs to be there somewhere, and then
mm-hmm,
have access to that data as well, right?
mm,
So organizations to really, I mean, a lot of organizations were excited about it, wanted to just jump into Copilot.
Mm,
and instead of, despite us advising them that, you need to, yes, this is exciting, you need to, but make sure that you do the course and validate, ensure your cores are correct. Some of them jumped into it and they found no value of Copilot. And I'll be brutally honest here. They said, hey, I'm not finding value. Why you do not find value? Because your data is disorganized. You do not have security came up and say, hey, no, no, we cannot give access to CMS. We cannot give access to this data. We cannot give access to that data. So these restrictions again in disabled Copilot from actually, churning out the value that it's supposed to do.
mm,
So data organization is another critical challenge that a lot of organizations, despite the excitement, has to have to step back and make sure that they review their data policies, data governance, data availability before embarking, on making it available for every a single user in the organization. And lastly is the culture.
mm.
Culture wise, still a lot of people think that, hey, I cannot trust AI to draft for me. I can do better.
Yeah.
So yes, a lot of people can do better for sure, no question about it. But can everyone in your team do the same quality work? Probably that's where the question comes in, right? Maybe you can
Yes.
do great, but not your colleague or your your counterpart. So that cultural thing has to be is another challenge that needs to be addressed there, where organization needs to ensure that people trust what is coming out of Copilot, but also ensure that they are not 100% dependent on that. Always have that mindset of 80/20, that yes, Copilot will do 80% for me, remaining 20% that is required to finish the job is something I'm going to do.
I think first challenge, as I said, data challenge that has traditionally been a difficult barrier for many things. I remember I used to call it big data, where you create insights out of data, and the different structure of data, different type of data, the amount of data, how it's been stored, how you're cleaning it. So I think that has not changed. So it doesn't matter whether there's a copilot behind it. It's this plumbing work of getting data ready is always going to be a challenge. And the second thing, which you talk very lightly about having different bots. Um, that's an interesting thing, because I remember people used to bring their own devices, their own laptops, their own software into an organization. I suppose it would be similar where some people prefer Copilot, some people prefer ChatGPT, some prefer, I don't know, Gemini, whatever. Do you see that happening? I mean, I don't know, but I'm wondering if you've seen that kind of bring your own AI in issue in an organization.
it, so this has this has been going on actually. So like we've seen organizations where a few departments just picked up Gemini and they started using it for their work, and some departments picked up something else and they started using those generative AI apps, some third party apps, not so common, not so famous apps as well, right? So that would continue to be there, and I think that's where the ecosystem and importance of ecosystem would be, that how open that ecosystem is, how can you ensure that you can bring those kind of niche or personalized experiences within the enterprise ecosystem. Now, when I say enterprise ecosystem, what I mean is that as an organization, the most important concern, and obviously the security team is always having that concern as well, that hey, where is that data going? I mean, like for example, for any third party app, if you are using your organization's data on that third party app, do you have that guarantee that they are not going to store that information or train their models based on that information that you have provided? Imagine someone uploading an Excel with stock details, and your competitor is also using the same AI bot, and then they can actually ask about your stock details with the same bot if they have been trained on the same model. I mean, and these are the principal challenges that it needs to be addressed and concerns that needs to be addressed. So yes, Copilot experience would be, this experience would be something that where organization would like to go somewhere outside, do something else. And that's where Microsoft has actually accepted that challenge, earlier as well. And we realized that yes, we cannot say that hey, it's an closed door experience. It has to be open door experience. That is why there is a support of almost 1400 plus connectors today available out of the box, that is under the concept of plugins, although it may become a little technical subject, but there is a concept of plugins that can allow Microsoft Copilot to actually extract information from various
Mm,
solutions, all the way from third party solutions like Adobe, or enterprise grade solutions like Salesforce, or ServiceNow or Oracle, and infuse that information into your Copilot experience. So, and the reason we are doing it, we want to make sure that enterprise organizations empower business users, because we understand business user would need some information from here and there, but also give them a framework that is secure. Information remains within your tenant, within your boundaries, within your trusted boundaries, so that your security team is also confident and comfortable in exposing that, and of course
mm,
minimizing the risk of bringing various tools into organization, rather than you actually deliver the output that is expected, rather than you look at tools.
mm. And then and back to the culture challenge. To what extent this culture concern or people worry about there's a potential bias in AI, be Copilot or others, and refuse to take a step forward?
Cultural challenge, I think, apart from bias, there's another thing that I would talk later, is about the fear of employees, or that they say that, hey, if Copilot becomes too common to public, I may end up losing my job. So I will talk about this later. But uh, yes, so bias is something that is honestly a very important concern that every organization has. As a Microsoft, of course, there is a ethics of responsible AI. Microsoft has set forth, and worked with all the leaders in the AI transformation industry to come up with principles, so that they can make sure that whatever has been captured, whatever is details have been provided, are going through some sort of validations. Like, for example, abuse monitoring is something that is part and parcel of Copilot. It again comes in from that perspective, and then the 80/20 rule that I keep talking about is, again, the core of that is to make sure that if there is a bias, it is not impacting immediately your end line, rather than there is a human intervention in between that can ensure that you can address that, that can ensure that you can catch that, and perhaps give that feedback back to Copilot and say that, hey, by the way, this was not an appropriate answer, and this is, you may have to change that. So bring that into a perspective. So I think bias, yes, because of the fear that of autopilot, there is a cultural fear of Copilot. But more and more cultural fear, I what I have seen is coming from the fact that people feel that they may lose their jobs to co-pilots, and that's where they do not want to embark on that. That is not a right fear. Yes, the transformation would happen, but not the replacement. I see that taking many years from now.
Okay. I mean, since we're talking about people's life, I suppose people look at it more from positive angle. Like this will make our job better. This will make our life easier. Um, but at the same time, we're probably touching a very touchy topic. Like, there's a massive layoff in quite a lot of organization. Do you think AI have any contribution in this? And what's your take on the future of AI and how is it going to help our society?
There was layoff, that happened, and obviously, from a news point of view, it was, credited to AI transformation as well. And I think some of the rules would change, for sure, change. I mean, a lot of gurus, when I listen to them, they call this revolution, and they match this revolution similar to the automobile revolution, and which is true in a lot of sense as well, because at the time of automobile revolution, a lot of people who used to work and their bread and butter was associated with horses disappeared, because people stopped using horses as their main source of transportation. Automobile came in. But then what happens is that a lot of those people who upskilled themselves became, instead of being the horse keeper, they became the car mechanics or automobile mechanics, right? So the job opportunity was created. There were many job opportunities were created with the core foundational same requirements, but different tools, different mindset, different skills and capabilities. So I think that's something that people needs to be wary of, and that's why, again, going back to my book, that I called out for business managers, that these
Mm,
guys needs to skill up, because their roles and the way they work in future is definitely going to change. I mean, a lot of organizations may not require tens of data entry operators in the organization anymore, because Copilot can help you do that or draft that to a level, right? But then there would be people required to make sure that this data is captured correctly, validated properly, and it is making the impact. So there would be different roles that would come up, right? And like for example, there's a lot of ask right now about Copilot authors, where people can actually create those specialized Copilot experiences that are very specific to organizations. Low code developers that people can who can actually give the essential business requirement to Copilot, so that Copilot can build that mobile app that is desired or a web app that is desired. So there are
Mm,
roles that are changing, shifting the way you work. But yes, some of the roles that we knew before may disappear. So the title may
mm,
disappear, but opportunities would come up as in something new. So obviously, there is a time for people to
mm.
skill up and make sure that they have, Copilot as one of their skills available with them, and they have mastered that how to interact with the Copilot.
I think that's probably a good segue to people who are looking into their workforce transformation, workplace transformation, to look into the book that you are written. Uh, how is it gonna help them to more taking the positive out of this whole entire transformation? So I make sure there's a banner on the screen that people can click on. Then within your own horizon, like what are some of the most exciting AI development that you've seen recently that might give even big boost to Copilot?
So one of the things that I think would continue, and Microsoft just announced a wave two of Copilot features a couple of days back. So one of the things that I see more and more coming from our product team, and of course driven by our business users and our customers ask, is the infusion of multiple data sources as a one single experience. Well, I'll give you an example. Like for example, as a seller, if I have to draft a presentation, I may have to look at my product details. I may have to look at the customer information, similar customer information, demographic details, and some other, maybe financial information. And all of this could reside into multiple systems and data source. But if I can give a more clear instruction or set of instructions from where we get what data and information, and provide that to PowerPoint, and if PowerPoint can fetch that information from, let's say, from Salesforce or from ServiceNow, from my CMS system, from SAP, and bring that presentation draft for me, I think that is really helpful in terms of reducing my turnaround time as a seller. I mean, I can finish that presentation preparation maybe hours ahead of time, right? And with accurate information, because this is looked at data system of record, and getting that information from there, right? So that's something that if I have to summarize it, the ability to look at multiple sources cohesively, and being able to translate my work experience truly from those core systems is something really exciting. And I've seen Copilot becoming more mature and mature, more open. Like I said, 1400 plus connectors available,
Mm,
more mature to other applications, not just the Microsoft ecosystem, outside Microsoft ecosystem as well. That is
mm,
the most exciting thing I find right now, that I do not have dependency, I do not have limitations. Rather than, I can really go beyond, and bring everything that is important for my business, for my day-to-day operations, under the hood of Copilot, and infuse that information together. That would really reduce a lot of work hours, and a lot of time that requires to do those mundane activities that are repetitive, that I know that I need to do every time, right? So that would really
mm.
make organization saves a lot of man hours on those activities.
And how do you see Asia in comparing with US and Europe in their adoption into the AI technology? Not necessarily just in Copilot, but in overall, AI adoption.
There is a massive I thank you for asking this question, actually, because if you would have asked this question to me 3 to 5 years back, my answer would have been completely different from what I'm going to say now. So earlier, I mean, I've been in Asia, Malaysia, and Singapore now for almost 8 years, and I've seen people confidence growing in transformative technology from a very closed mindset to an open, aggressive adoption mindset. And I confidently believe that Asia can actually lead AI transformation and become the one of the earliest adopters as well. I mean, we've seen a lot of organizations here. If I talk about Singapore in particular, I see a great support and great agility from the government of Singapore. I mean, massive organizations like GovTech and Synapse, who are leading the transformation in government agencies. Uh, Really openly accepting, understanding the challenges of AI, addressing those challenges of the AI, not with the notion of stopping it, rather with the notion of adopting it and dispersing it. So I see this same attitude in other countries. I mean, like Thailand, Malaysia. Again, if I don't
Mm.
name any country of Asia, please don't mind, because what I mean is every other
Yeah.
country that and there is private sector, both are pushing forward, making sure they solve the problems. And I mean, and I said, like, 5 years back, when we used to talk to CISOs about the transformative disruptive technology, we used to feel that there was a idea of how can I make sure that this doesn't happen. So the questions were always asked to identify problems but not the solutions. But today, when we talk to those CISOs, we see an attitude where they ask the question to solve the problem. So that's a
Mm.
massive change. They want to adopt, they want to be the leaders despite having many challenges. Like, for example, Azure OpenAI does not have a deployment in Asia right now. It's in only in
Mm.
Australia, the nearest one, but still people are fine with it. They say, yes, let's address the concerns that are there, but push forward, make sure that we are the early adopters. So I
Mm.
definitely see Asia as the leaders in future for AI transformation and adoption
Interesting.
more important.
Yeah, yeah. That's great to hear. I give a lot of confidence for people who either out there building or people out there selling or people who are thinking still if whether they should build their own product or solution. So I also felt like the I guess the acceptance of AI is already in place at many different levels, and Asia has been quite open-minded about this technology, and that's great to see. It's being testified also from from Microsoft and what you see. I remember I was in a panel discussion late last year in September with one of the VP in Microsoft, and he said there was like at that point of time, there was like 30 to 40 POCs that Microsoft is rolling out in the region, all to do with generative AI. Whether it's the GPT-4 models, or I think they were looking at the other models as well. So I think that as a region, Asia has shown a tremendous interest in this space, and I genuinely hope that we can lead the transformation with this. If I can ask you to leave one or two key takeaways for managers, since this book was written for managers, as well as for leaders in the enterprise who are looking into the AI transformation. It would be great to share a few thoughts.
I think for managers, my only suggestion is to become more curious about how generative AI would impact and really empower yourself with the concept of generative AI. I think there is, I've said this before here as well, that, and in many times, that future of work is changing. I mean, the way we know today, how we work today, is going to change massively, and especially for our frontline officers, managers, business managers, it's time for them to really amp up their skill sets, especially in terms of core concepts of how they can infuse Copilot experiences into various of day-to-day operations. So empowering themselves, skilling themselves with the concept is must do right now, and that would really help them in terms of managing their team, managing their own career, for next 3 to 5 years, because it is going to come, the usage and the impact would be heavier for leaders. While my suggestion would be that while the excitement of Copilot is great, but do listen to your technology and security teams as well. But they need to have a major play in this, because you need to make sure that, like I talked about earlier, that you need to make sure that data organizations are accurate. and done in a best way. So that is one support that has to be top down, because it would disrupt some of the other things that may be happening at that at particular time. But for Copilot
Mm.
adoption, it is essential that those teams spend some reasonable time to make sure that everything is in place to really give you the ROI that you expect from Copilot. And then be the leaders of the change. Organizations where I've seen Copilot or is Copilot related use cases really flourishing are where the leaders are examples of usage. Well, I mean, it is very common in Microsoft for our leaders all the way from Satya to Judson to share their use cases and their prompts. They simply just
Mhm.
post their use case and prompt, say, hey, we come up with this prompt and it is helping me great. And that really amplifies the usage, trust, and obviously adoption. That a lot of people see, hey, he's using it, why I'm not using it, right? So
Mm.
that so be not just be the leader of organization, but be the leader of change as well. Make sure that you are the first one to say that, hey, I love Copilot, I use Copilot.
Yeah.
And that's how you can also do that, and that will really make huge difference in terms of adoption.
I should have asked this question before, since this is how matters to the result. You use the word prompt. Obviously, prompt engineering is everything in terms of how we harness the power of LLMs. Can you give us a prompt that you use personally that you felt it was a great? Could you give us an example of that in getting your job done?
One of the most common challenges that comes in with my experiences, of course, there is a massive pace of technology movement where our products are getting improved every day, where Microsoft is releasing new features, capabilities, functionalities, and then of course the customer ask associated that. Sometimes customers are much faster, and I'll feel no shame in accepting this. They are much faster in reviewing those new releases that happened when I was sleeping here and US was open, right? So morning 8 a.m. I'll receive a call from a customer and an email from a customer saying that, hey, you have just released this feature, we want to know more about that, and I have no details. So I use this prompt
Mm.
where I actually pick up a product documentation and the question. But in terms of prompt engineering, and it is very important, you rightly highlighted, and in a book I have actually kept just two practical exercises that are beyond other subjects. One is this from the prompt engineering as well, because you need to understand how to interact with Copilot. So I asked this, question that, hey, Copilot, referring to our product release, detailed in my document XYZ, can you please draft an answer for this and give me key pointers in terms of what change has happened. So that prompt is something that I use quite often. That gives me immediately, not only a draft answer, but also give me takeaways that, hey, these are the changes that are happening, so that I can go back, look at specific section of that document and
Mm.
do my deep dive further, instead of looking at the document and spending too long time on that. Maybe sometimes our customers are a bit in a haze, they expect answers much faster. So that helps me in terms of giving that answer, and also giving me confidence that yes, this is something that is backed up by certain product documentation or feature documentation that is released by the product team.
Thank you. That was great. I can see how this fit into your role and on a regular basis where your customer is actually ahead of you in learning and understanding and want to understand more of this information. Thanks for sharing that prompt. So with that,
Yep.
thank you so much, Adil. It's been a great pleasure to have you on my show and to share all these insights with the co-pilots and also look out in the future. Hope we can have you back again when Microsoft release the next Copilot 2.0. So thanks again for coming to the show.
Thank you so much for inviting me. AI Business Asia is doing amazing work. I've been through a lot of